Hello, I'm Dan from EDEMO Electric Bikes, and this is my review of the Riese Müller Supercharger2. So the Supercharger2 is available in a couple of different colours. The lovely curry matte that we've got here, warm silver matte I think is the other one. It comes in 4 different frame sizes, 3 specifications for the gears, either touring, vario or roll-off. A selection of different displays that you can go for from Bosch, Intuvia, Kiox, the Nyon or even the smartphone hub. And then lots of other accessories as well, like front racks you can put on it. But most important part about this bike is the twin batteries that we've got here, either available in 1000 watt hour or 1250 watt hour batteries, and will get you well over 100 miles. Starting at the front of the bike, looking at the specification of the bike that we've got here. So this one is called a Supercharger2 in curry matte. It's a 49 centimetre frame. Options that we've gone for on it are the belt drive onto the roll-off hub, so it's an E14 hub. We've gone for the GX pack, which is the off-road kit. So that's these knobbly tyres that we're seeing here. And also the slightly more aggressive pedal as well. We've also got in this bike, this is the 1250 watt hour battery, so the slightly larger battery. It's got a 625 watt hour battery in the top tube and also the same again in the down tube, which makes the range on this bike enormous. Other equipment this one's got is the Nyon display, so the Bosch Nyon display, which is a colour touchscreen display, and it includes a sat nav on it. When you look through the catalogue, you'll see it described as the Nyon cockpit, and the cockpit is referring to this piece here, which allows you basically to adjust your handlebars backwards and forwards from you. So first thing to notice on this bike is the tyres. So this is part of the GX pack that we've got. It's the Schwalbe Johnny Watts tyre. Schwalbe have released this tyre this year and they describe it as a sports utility vehicle tyre. You'll notice that the tread pattern that's on them, so we've got this block pattern, so we've got these nice sort of knobbly bits on the outside, but through the middle they're far closer together, so we're actually getting less rolling resistance off these tyres. So you can use them both for the road and then for the off-road as well, and they're going to bite in nicely. The standard bike, which is the GT bike, comes with a Schwalbe Moto X tyre, which is a bit smoother. It's far better for road mileage as it has less resistance, but most people are specifying that the GX pack to go for this one. It's got great puncture resistance as well, so we haven't, touch wood, haven't had any punctures on this bike so far. You'll notice as well on this bike, obviously we've got hydraulic disc brakes on there. So on the front we've got Magura NT5s and on the back we've got Magura NT4s. So really nice brakes and really powerful as well. We need powerful brakes because of the weight of the bike that we're going to have flying down the hill. Another thing to notice is down on the front that we've got a through axle on the bike. Makes the front of the suspension a lot stiffer rather than having a standard sort of skewer that's in there. And the way that that's removed is pretty simple. It's a bit like a skewer in that you've got a quick release on this side, but when you take this, there's a flare. You're going to push this in and lock it, and then this axle is going to come all the way out the bike, and then you've got a separate axle taken out. So now your wheel's going to drop off. So it's quite handy to know how this works, because a lot of people try taking that circlip out and phone me afterwards to ask how to put it back together again. But it's a simple little system. Push it, twist it, and it locks, and then it will feed straight through. Open it up and lock it back in place. Air suspension on this bike provided with a lockout as well. When we deliver the bike, we'll show you how to pressurize this and we'll get this set up for you as well, but it comes with the shock pump that's in the bike, sorry, in the box. So on the front of this bike, where the bottles attach, there is an option to have a rack fitted. Here is one I prepared earlier. Here we go. So the rack will actually clip onto the front of the frame here. It's a bolt, so there's 4 bolts that go onto it. And then you can carry, I think it's up to about 5 kilograms on the front, so that can be a tent or something strapped onto the front. But when you have the rack fitted, it has extended holders on the end there, so you can still have your water bottles as well. You could put on there a tent, your sleeping bag, your roll mat, all those types of things. But the other thing to remember, the most important part, is it makes the bike look really good. So that's the reason that most people put them on there. I've not seen many of them used. But yeah, I chuck my tent on it when I'm going away at the weekend. Really nice little feature. Moving up onto the handlebars, to the fun stuff. On this bike, there's an awful lot going on the handlebars. So we've got a lot of bells and whistles and toys and things to play with. First thing to notice is with this bike, this is it's a GT roll-off, but it has the GX pack on it. Now the GX means that it's got the off-road kit added to it. One of the features of this, in addition to the knobbly tyres and the more aggressive pedals, are these bar ends. So these are called Ergon GP3 bar ends. It's just an additional sort of piece that goes onto the end of the handlebar. And it means that when you're doing an awful lot of miles, your wrists can tend to get a little bit tired. So it's nice to have another place to put your hands. Don't try braking because you won't reach them from here. But if you're hill climbing, it's a great place to get your hands and just get yourself a little bit more comfortable moving around. The standard Ergon grip that comes is this sort of bulbous piece that's down here. So it's really going to support this piece of your hand. So you'll find actually it's a lot nicer than the really narrow, thin handlebar grips that you tend to get. There's an awful lot of support. And these are adjustable from a little bolt that's under here. So you can move this grip, but then you can also move this independently to get to the position that you actually want to put all this in. So you can make it really, really comfortable. The next thing that we've got on here is then the gear shifter for the roll-off system. So on this bike, we've got a 14-speed internal hub on the back wheel. But instead of having like the mechanical levers or the twist grips that we tend to see on other bikes, we have an electronic shifter on this one. So you've got a plus and a minus to change the gear, and you just press it. And I don't know if you can hear that, but the gears in the back are actually indexing down through. Now, on your display here, your gear indicator is shown in the top right here. If you've got good eyesight, you can see it once you're stopped. Once you're moving and everything's starting to bounce around, you don't stand a chance. So easiest thing is to put it onto a different screen, and as you change gear, it's going to pop up and it's going to tell you what gear you're in. Another nice feature of the roll-off is that we can set it for a ride-away gear. Now, as standard from the shop, we would set that ride-away gear as being gear 5. And what will happen is, as you approach a junction and you're in the highest gear and you bring the bike to a stop and you forget to change down, a split second later, you will hear the gears changing. It will just go all the way down to gear 5, a bit like this. It makes that noise, but we're going the other way. Moving on to the next thing, obviously the brake that's on here. That we've got two of these, quite lucky, a front one and a back one. They are Magura levers here, and they've got an integrated switch into the blade of the lever as well, which actually fires the rear brake light that's on there as well. These are hydraulic brakes. They're incredibly powerful brakes. They're on the front, we've got Magura MT5s, and on the back we've got Magura MT4s. They've also got an adjustment for the reach on them. So in the front of the lever here, we've got a little bolt that we can wind out, and that will actually bring the blade in towards you. So if you've got small hands, then you'll be able to reach it, or if you want to push further out, you can do that as well. Obviously, the other adjustment is through here, where we're going to roll the brake levers up and down to get to the comfortable position for your riding. Moving along again, I don't know if you can see underneath this bell here, we've got then the main beam and dipped lights. So on your controller, on the right hand side here, we've got a button to turn the lights on. And you'll see they're really, really bright lights. These are Supernova M99 minis. They're so bright, we quite often get into trouble with cars if you've got them wrongly adjusted. So if you get them too high up, you're going to be blinding people. So you can just grab hold of it and move it to where you want. But this button that's down here is a main beam and dipped light. So you can press it and it'll take it up to full beam, and then you can drop it back down again. So this means if you are going to be doing the commuting riding, it's lovely through the summer when you're getting used to it, but when you get to the winter, you really want a light on your bike, and to have a proper light that lights the road and everything around you is really quite special. Next thing along is then the most important part on the bike is our bell. Lovely little bell that we've got there. Essential for any bike in the UK, but yeah, they're nice little bells that they put on. Moving across again, so this is where it all tends to get quite exciting and all that. Well, it tends to get quite exciting if you're me and you really like this sort of thing. But there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to talk through a couple of different bits first of all, and then we'll move on to the screen that's on this bike. First of all, you'll see on the back here is the headlight that we were talking about. It has got an adjustment, so you can actually put it to the right position to get it set up. Probably if you're riding off-road, you might want it looking a little bit closer to you, or if you're riding on the road, you want it shooting out quite a way in the distance because you'll be traveling faster. And then you've obviously got this main beam and dipped light. So the next thing we move on to is then the control or the display unit that comes on the bike. So there's 4 different ones that are available on the Supercharger 2. You can have the Intuvia, which is the basic one, which is like an LCD screen, so a bit like a calculator would be. Moving up then to the kiosk display, and then the smartphone hub and the Neon display, which we've got here. Now, 3 of those come with the cockpit option, which is this piece here. So the kiosk, the smartphone hub and the Neon are all listed in the thing as having a Neon cockpit with them. But the cockpit essentially means this piece of the stem here is adjustable. So there's a pivot through this part here that would allow you to bring the handlebars up towards you to get that perfect sort of positioning so you can be super comfortable. I'm just going to turn the lights off first of all. So but power button is on the left hand side, a lights button on the right hand side. And you can see at the moment your lights are on, and we can switch them off on that switch. So looking at the display here, we're looking at the Neon display, which is the top end display available for this bike. It's got loads of really nice features. It came out this year and it's been supplied on pretty much all the bikes that we've sold. But you'll see as we sort of scan through the screen, there's a few different bits and pieces. Top right up here shows us the gear that we're in. So at the moment it says this is a roll-off, so we're in gear 5 of 14. I can change that and it will change the little number on the top there. Almost impossible to read whilst you're riding along as the bike starts moving. But if you move off the screen, so it's a touch screen, or you can use your left and right shifters, but move off the screen to another one, and when you change gear, it pops up and it tells you what gear you're in. So scanning through some of the other stuff, this curve that sits here, there's going to be a dark green or a darker coloured colour that moves up first of all. That's the power of the motor, and then you'll see your power in a slightly lighter colour coming up over the top. As you change the assistance level, it's eco at the moment, so as you change up through the assistance level, it changes the colour of the screen as you go up as well. Next thing is to look at is this one. This is the speed that the bike's travelling at the moment. And then this one is absolutely brilliant, most important. So I've just done a really short ride on this bike just to put a little bit of mileage on here. But it's worked out that I've got 83 miles of range left on this bike. And the best thing about that, it's only 62% charged. So this bike is going to do absolutely huge mileage. Remember, this is the 1,250 watt-hour bike, and it's spec'd with the GX kit. So it's given us that forecast mileage based on those slightly tyres with more resistance in them as well. So, you know, it really is a huge, huge range that you're going to get out of them. Then there's some other things you can scan through. I guess one of the things to notice on this bike, you can have it set as EMTB mode, which means it's a dynamic setting that moves basically from Tour all the way up to turbo, depending on the speed you're traveling and how hard you press on the pedals. If you're doing more road miles, you'll probably prefer this mode to be set to Sport, which is then a cap on the assistance level that the bike will give, so it won't keep on topping up into turbo when you're trying to climb those hills, and it'll let you do the work so that you can get the greater range out of the battery. Scrolling through the screen, so it's a little swipe to go on them, and then it tells us all the basic stuff we'd expect, but there's other things in here like the altitude that is built in as well. And then most important on this one is maps. So we've got a sat nav built into it. So we can do this, we could sort of open it up, we can say points of interest. Most important, I always use this, eat and drink, pubs. They are open now, so we can definitely go to one of these. They might even serve us if we're lucky. I don't think we have to book in at the moment. And then we can just choose one of the nearby pubs. So let's go for the Old Lodge. It's good fun up there. Hit start. And then it's going to create our route up there, and it's going to pop up and tell us when to turn right, when to turn left, and everything else. So really, really nice sat nav that's on there. One of the other things that are on there are this type of thing that tells you how hard you've been working or not, as the case may be. The first little bar at the top here says that we spent 42% of our time in Eco, 6% of our time in Tour, 6% in EMTB, 46% in turbo. Then you'll see also down here, you can see the difference between the power that you've put in and the motor's been putting in. So I've been putting in half the power compared to the motor, or 48 to 52, which is a really nice thing to see, so that when your friends tell you that you're cheating, you can point out and say you're not, it's definitely still doing half the work at least. And then there's all sorts of other things you can set up. So on these screens here, these are like little widgets that you can change. So you can go and configure all your own screens as well. You can have loads of other bits of information as well. So that's really the display that's on here. So don't forget, this is the Nyon display. You can go for the Kiox, which is a step down for this, or you can go for the smartphone hub. The smartphone hub isn't compatible with the roll-off. So with the roll-off, you've really got the choice of the Intuvia, the Kiox, or the Nyon display. And remember, if you go for the Intuvia display, it doesn't come as a cockpit, so you don't get this adjustable stem. It's a fixed stem that goes with it. So my favourites are either the Kiox or the Intuvia. I'm just getting used to my favourites are the Kiox or the Nyon, and I'm just getting used to the Nyon now. Because it's got so much more information on there, it takes a while to get used to. But when you do, it's an absolutely brilliant little system on it. So moving across out onto the far of the left-hand side of the handlebar, we've now got this little shifter here, which is the one to control the power and to scan through all the menus and stuff. So we mentioned earlier, this is a touch screen, so you can slide through it, but also you've got a left and a right button that actually moves through those menus for you as well. So the same thing as doing the swipe with your finger. But to change the assistance level, so from Eco all the way up to Tour, you've got a plus and you've got a minus button. The minus does actually take it all the way down to off, so if you wanted to ride the bike off, you quite happily can. The motor won't kick in, so you can get some more miles. But do remember, at that point, you are going to be carrying these really big batteries that are in here, and the motor, and obviously the hub gear as well. So the bike becomes quite sluggish at that point, but it's more than possible to actually ride it. One of the other things that people are always asking is, has it got a walk assist? The answer is yes, it has on all the Bosch bikes. It's normally a little button that's just hidden up on the top here. You press that, and then it comes, oops, turn the power on. Press that once, and then it comes up here and it says to activate it, press and hold the plus button. That's a plus button, and we're not going to do it now or it'll go into the wall, but you just have to do it before this timer counts down. And then once you press that, the bike will walk alongside you. So if you've got steep steps to go up, or if you're off-road and you can't ride up a piece, you can always just set the walk assist and then press and hold it and take it up the hill. And then out onto the very edge here, again, obviously the same grip as the other side, and then the rear brake. So it's UK spec, so we've got our front brake on the right-hand side and we've got our rear brake on the left-hand side. So moving on to the frame on this bike, it's available in 4 different sizes and 2 colours. And I guess also 2 sets of battery sizes as well. So the 2 colours are Curry Matte, which is this one, which is a really lovely colour. It's kind of a yellowy colour. I don't know how it comes out on the camera. It might not be quite so obvious. Some people have been in the shop in the last few weeks and they said, oh, I really like the green bike, but I'm 100% sure it's yellow. It's curry. I haven't seen well, it might be a green Thai curry maybe, but yeah, it's definitely yellow. The other colour of this bike is actually called Silver Matte. So it's a really nice sort of silvery colour again, but with this lovely matte paint finish that we get on it. So the frame sizes that come in, 4 different sizes. This one is a 49 centimetre bike. I'm 6'1" for reference, and when I'm riding this bike, I have this saddle an awful lot higher than this, so it's up here somewhere. I can happily ride the 49 centimetre bike, but really I should probably be on the 53 centimetre bike, so the one up from this. And there is then another bike, a 56 centimetre bike up from that again, which is suitable for riders up to around about 2 metres. And then there is one size smaller than this bike, which goes down to a 46 centimetre bike, which is the smallest size that they do. So there's plenty of range in the frames to fit pretty much every single person that's out there. But probably the most interesting thing about this bike and this frame is the 2 batteries that we've got in it. So this one is actually specified with 2 625 watt-hour batteries. So it's got a 625 watt-hour battery in the top tube here and another one in the bottom, in the down tube that we've got here. That means that this bike has a total of 1,250 watt-hours. That's enormous for an electric bike and will get you a huge distance. So to work out the range on this bike, the easy way that I do this is to look at the watt hours of the bike and then just lop off the last number. So this is a 1,250 watt hour bike. That means it's going to be capable of doing 125 miles-ish, give or take. And don't forget, that's not the total or the maximum mileage it would do. If you ride it in eco and get the speed up and sit above that sort of assistance level, you'll find you're going to get an awful lot more miles. My 1,000 watt hour version of this that I ride at the moment, I am easily doing over sort of 100 miles, which should be the sort of target range. But yeah, it's a huge battery. It's going to get you a long way. It's definitely going to do the commute if that's 8 miles, and you can definitely do it in turbo with no problems at all. You could probably do it all week and not even bother charging it. Moving to the back of the bike. Now you'll notice this is, I guess you could call it a hardtail. So there's no rear suspension on this bike. Now people kind of look at that and say, well, okay, is that a downside of the bike? It depends what you're using the bike for. So if you're thinking of doing a lot of miles, so a lot of road miles, sorry, on this bike, so sort of commuting and stuff, actually you might find that you prefer the hardtail that's on this, because when you use a full suspension bike, part of the power that you put into the bike through the pedals is lost, because you imagine that every time you push, the bike gives a little bit, and that's absorbing power. So with a hardtail, you're going to find it's an awful lot more efficient, and you're going to get a lot more miles out of it. So this is a hardtail bike, great for road miles, but also crossing over into the off-road stuff. Looking at the motor on this bike, by default, it's going to be the top of the range Bosch motor. So this is the Bosch Performance CX motor. It's 250 watts and 85 Newton meters. It's the motor that's pretty much used across the whole of the range of Riese Müller bikes, sort of from the Nevo and the Charger upwards. Phenomenal motor, probably one of the best ones on the market, and in this bike it is really lovely. The motor is capable of assisting you up to 15.5 miles an hour, which in reality what happens is when you reach that 15.5 miles an hour, the motor starts to fade out and you'll feel it ticking off around about sort of 16.9, 17 miles an hour, and then after that you're on your own pushing the extra speed. On one of these bikes I would happily do around about sort of 35 miles an hour in the morning coming down the hill, obviously pedalling and rolling, yeah, and it's a pretty stable bike. Moving on and looking at the saddle that we've got on this. So this again is the saddle that's used across the range of, or mainly across the range of the Riese Müller bikes. It's a Selle Royale 3D skin gel looking saddle. I don't know how they've managed to get so many different brand names onto one saddle, but they've done quite well. Essentially it's a gel saddle. It's really comfortable saddle. Definitely don't change it. Ride with this saddle and give it a good go, because I've been using mine now for a couple of years and it is so comfortable. It's a really nice saddle to use. It's also got a nice feature in the seat post that's sitting in here is called a Cane Creek Thub Buster. I think specifically it's a Cane Creek Thub Buster ST or something like that. But what it means is this little piece of the suspension post here, it's like, I guess it's a diamond, and in the middle it's got a piece of rubber, and as you hit something it just collapses a little bit, so it takes out some of the jarring to your back. So what you'll see is it just gives a little bit. You can change the density of the piece of rubber that goes in the middle. It's supplied as standard with a medium density piece of rubber, but from Cane Creek you can buy the additional ones to go in there. Looking towards the back of the bike up here, this bike comes as standard with this style of Abbas Shield cafe lock that goes with it. It's the same key for this lock as it is for the two keys that are for the batteries as well, so it's one key to do the whole of the bike. The way these Abbas Shield locks work is you put the key in, turn it, you push the lever, and a little bolt drops through the wheel, which stops the wheel turning. So nobody's going to ride your bike off, but they could pick it up and run with it if they're feeling particularly tough. There is an option to have a chain extension that goes on here as well. So you can have a long piece of chain that plugs into the side of this and then loops on around a fence or a lamp post, so that you can just fix your bike onto it. It's quite a popular option. It's only 47 quid, and it comes in a little bag that sits under the saddle. So it's quite a nice thing to go for as an extra. Looking down the back towards the gearing, so as I mentioned earlier, this bike is called a Supercharger 2 GT roll-off. The roll-off part is referring to the type of gearing that we've got here. So the first thing that you'll notice is that this is a belt drive rather than a chain drive. So this means there's far less maintenance to do on this bike. So the belt doesn't need oiling, it just needs a little bit of hot and soapy every so often to get the mud and the grit and the dirt off it, and it will actually just keep running perfectly. If you get a bit of a creak as it comes over the chain ring, then a spray of something like GT85 will just ease it round as it goes. The only piece of maintenance that is required on a belt is just keeping this tension. It needs to be between 30 and 50 hertz. There's a nice little app that comes with the Gates, manufactured by Gates, who are the people that make the belt. And it's basically like a frequency tuner for a guitar. You hold it up, you give the belt a twang and make sure it's taut enough. If it's not, there's a couple of bolts down on the back here and an adjuster, same on the other side. You release these two, quarter turn of this, and that will just move your wheel back and bring this taut. And that's it for the maintenance on the belt, which is an awful lot better than having a chain and a derailleur where you've got to oil the chain, you've got to measure the stretch, you've got to index the gears, which are all sorts of things that people forget they're supposed to do. The belt is obviously then a direct drive onto the rear wheel, and the rear wheel has a hub inside of it, a geared hub, which is called a roll-off hub. It's an E14. So for those uninitiated, you may remember when we were kids and we would ride bikes with Sturmey Archer gears, and there was never anything exposed in the way of gears. It was all in the hub. Well, this roll-off is like a Sturmey Archer on steroids. It's a 14-speed hub in the rear wheel. But it's got an electronic shift up on the handlebars here. It's quite incredible what they actually fit into there, and the range of gears that you get is enormous. So you've got a really low gear and you've got a really high gear, so you get that full sort of range of speeds that you can do on the bike. Other things that come as standard on this bike are the rear pannier rack that is fitted on here. This is capable of carrying, this one says 27 kilograms, and it's got an adapter on it, so you can click a bag into it or click panniers onto it. The adapter is called an MIK HD. So have a look for different manufacturers that make bags that will clip into those. So as a roundup, who is this bike actually designed for? What are the type of things that you're going to be doing? Why are you going to buy this bike? If you're looking for the most miles you can possibly get from an e-bike, then it's going to be this bike. You will have found it through Google by searching for exactly that. The fact that you can have two 625 watt-hour batteries on it, you're not going to find that on in another e-bike on the market. This is one of my favourite bikes, and I say that about every single one of the bikes. They are all one of my favourite bikes, but I actually own this one. Not this very one because it's very tidy. Mine's got big scratches and dents all over it, but I own the 1000 watt-hour version of this with the GT Touring set on the back, so the chain and derailleur. I've used it for the last year, 18 months. It's a bit battered because I don't look after my bikes particularly well, but I've been out across Exmoor, I've done all the bridle ways around here, and I've done some enormous trips as well. I've done 100 miles out from here out to Simmons Yat, down and back over the bridge. It's a really lovely bike. If I had a choice of buying a Riese Müller for myself and I didn't have access to every single bike that was here, I would definitely start by buying the Supercharger 2.